We literally lost 50% of our income at a sudden notice. We did not plan for Daniel to be a stay-at-home dad, but now we make more. It's weird that it's working better than when we had double the income.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Home Life Insights Podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Haig, along with my incredible wife and co-host, Annette Haig.
This is your go-to podcast for everything related to family dynamics. Our goal is to share sparks of insights that might be helpful for your home life.
Join us as we flip the script and explore the path of a stay-at-home dad. We hope you enjoy. Hello, guys, and welcome back to the Home Life Insights Podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about finances, how we make a single-family income work.
Yes, finances is a really big topic. I think one of the biggest ones, even when it comes to being in a relationship together and merging the finances, and also for the ability to have a stay-at-home parent as well.
It's such an interesting topic because you think when you first start dating somebody, you don't usually talk about finances. You kind of just see through the looking glass at what they may have, the house that they have, cars, there's never really a full-on conversation generally of, how much do you make? Oh, what do you do with your finances?
And when we had that conversation, of course, we grew up differently, have different mindsets. I would say that was a pretty rough initial conversation because we were on different pages.
Our upbringings and the way that we viewed money and utilized money as far as joy spending versus habit spending was on different realms, plus different amounts of debt that we were in because of other decisions we had made.
Yeah, and in school they don't really teach you much about finances in general, so once you enter the adult life you kind of figure it out the hard way. Usually it's kind of a sink or swim when you actually do manage all of your money and how that whole system works. But in theory though, it's kind of simple because it's just numbers, right? It's a made-up construct that humans created to identify their wealth and be able to trade for things.
Yeah, but ultimately we're living in it. So we got to figure out how to make money work for us, right?
Yes, and we are not experts, so we're going to reference a lot of books and just our story of how we make it work.
And ultimately how we came to the realization that being on a single family income is something that's advantageous for us.
Yeah, so first we're going to start by our book recommendations that we think are really helpful. And then we're going to go into a lot of tips of what we actually do to make it work. Starting off with our first book that we recommend, we actually started reading this together from almost the day we started dating. It's called The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday.
And I'm a huge advocate of Stoicism. I've always been drawn to it because of the essential disconnection from your feelings towards money or towards various pleasures and pains in life, because I think a big part of what holds us back in the financial realm is either the belief in ourselves or the overconfidence that we have from having too much money. So it kind of puts a balance on that.
Yeah, and my big takeaway is happiness comes from within. So you could have all the riches in the world and be completely unhappy. So it's not necessarily the focus on obtaining materialistic items as much as it is growing your mindset.
Although in the words of Daniel Tosh, you can't be unhappy on a jet ski.
We don't have a jet ski.
We don't have a jet ski. Well, maybe we need to get one.
All right. And then our next book that we highly recommend is by Ramit Sethi I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And he's also on Netflix and has a really good and funny series called How to Get Rich. And this is a very simple to follow 6-week program, very easy to read, very easy to implement, and offers a lot for you financial savvy folks. His focus is not only on easy to do tasks that you can implement, but also on the psychology of money as well, which I thought was really cool.
Especially on the Netflix special, it really draws a fine line for you to put in perspective of what is your rich life look like. So it kind of forces you to really define that, but also being vulnerable and open to seeing that some things that I'm spending my money on are not things I actually care about, whereas other things that I'm cutting out perhaps are things that really mean a lot to me. For example, let's say I want to get a coffee every day. Well, if that's something that aligns with my rich life, then you should be able to afford getting a coffee every day.
But what we did to get to where we're at is we got his book, we read it, And then the kicker, we did it. So a lot of people hear this really good information and they don't do anything with it. And we literally sentence by sentence did everything he said. And I can't brag enough about how helpful the book was for us making this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like that saying where it doesn't matter how good the plan is if you're not sticking to it. You can have the perfect goal and the perfect plan and the perfect way to execute it, but if you don't stick to it consistently, it's not going to come to fruition.
Yes.
Highly recommend Ramit Sethi's How to Get Rich on Netflix and I Will Teach You to Be Rich. Great book for identifying your rich life, which for me will tie into another recommendation, which is a documentary. They have books and they have a podcast as well, but the Minimalism or the Minimalists give a similar parallel to Ramit in the fact that they have you take stock into clutter and things in your life that bring you joy or things that are taking away from you. So essentially, if you are overzealous with the things that you're spending your money on, then you're wasting money on things you don't actually care about to usually impress people you don't usually care about.
Yeah, the whole saying, keeping up with the Jones. Like I know before we switched to a single family income, I got my nails religiously done all the time. And I save $100 by not doing it because I realized I don't really need to do that. It's not as big of a deal as I thought it was. So the next book we have is Tony Robbins' Money Master the Game. We both had this on Audible. And I mean, it's Tony Robbins. He's amazing. Very incredible. Very motivating. It's his life work. So you got to listen to it. It's really helpful with identifying a good mindset, but also very good information on things that you can accomplish right here, right now. Easy to follow steps as well.
And he's also really big on focusing that all of our conditionings from our past and the way that we talk to ourselves now greatly influence our financial state, our mental state. And he really shifts you into a perspective change, into a shift state change, which will help you have more perspective on what your actual goals are and things of that nature.
Yes. The next book, love this one, another good one. I mean, I guess we're only listing the books that we love, is Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert T. Kiyosaki. And I love this one because he really drove the concept home of assets versus liability. And that can be helpful when it comes to purchasing certain things. Also, he's big on real estate investments. And that book is what helped me decide when I bought a home to have a home where I could have a roommate, and that involved into, okay, let's get something for Airbnb or VRBO. And now we really love doing that. And we have a triplex and 2 of the units go out to Airbnb, and it works out really great to have that other passive income stream. So that way we can make this life happen.
Absolutely. For us too, a lot of these don't have to be physical books, although we do have a reading practice that we utilize on weekends or days that Annette has off or while we're driving. We will listen to a lot of audiobooks as well as podcasts. Podcasts are really big in our life. The one thing I would like to note, though, is that anytime you're listening to something, it's important to be cognizant that you're not just kind of ignoring the information. I tend to get guilty of this as well, where I'll listen to something, but I'm not actually absorbing anything. It's kind of just background noise to whatever I may be doing. So I'm a huge advocate of taking notes. So highly recommend that.
And I'm a huge advocate of doing it. Even if I fail, I still consider that being helpful. As much as it sucks to fail, I always really like to try it. When somebody gives me advice, I really like to do it and see if it works. So yeah. I'm just that type of go-getter mentality, like, they said this, let's do it within reason.
An ounce of action outweighs a ton of good ideas.
Yeah. And another thing we like to do is sometimes we don't have enough time to fully read this book or listen to it on Audible or listen to it on a podcast. We really like if you go to YouTube and just type in the book, they have those cool, what is it, like an Etch-a-Sketch?
Yeah, it's like an animated summation of the book. They take the key ideas and they illustrate it in a very absorbable way that you can take great notes on, and it paints it in a perspective that's really easy to digest.
Yeah, because we both grew up not really having the best financial mentors where we really learned all this stuff at a young age. So now that we are adults, we try to surround ourselves with a lot of information. So our mentors are now like books and resources where you can find almost anything these days on the internet. So that's really helpful to paint that positive mindset and surround ourselves with that information.
Which ties into the whole idea that you're a culmination of the people that you surround yourself with. I think it was Jim Rohn who said you should take stock in what people are doing and paying attention. For example, if you go to a rich person's house and you go look at their books, you want to read those books. But also, go to a poor person's house and know that you don't read those books. Which I always thought was a great metaphor.
I don't know. That's a little tricky, though, because a lot of people buy books because that's who they want to be, but then they don't actually read them. So it's tricky.
That's true. But Jim Rohn was the mentor of Tony Robbins, and I'll listen to whatever he tells me to do.
Okay, well, I guess that makes sense. And then the next one, podcast. I was former military, so this applies to me and also would apply if you're a federal employee. But it's called the Military Money Manual Podcast, and they do a really good job with the TSP portion. That's the same thing as a retirement as a 401k or a Roth IRA, but in federal section, you call it the thrift savings plan. And that really helped me, especially the sooner the better. Never think it's too late, because you want to start right now as fast as you can with planning for your retirement, even if that's a little, if that's a lot. And you would be really surprised at how inches become miles within that. And whatever you set up today could make the world of a difference for when you retire when you're older. And I'm a big fan of retiring as soon as you're financially able to. So setting all of that in place now will help build up over time for the future. Almost everybody that I talk to that is about to retire, I always ask them, what's your advice? What's your advice? And they all say that. Retire as soon as you financially can.
That's why I'm retired now.
Yeah, we kind of do live a semi-retired life, which is really awesome. And why we do a lot of research into how to keep this lifestyle, because it's working out really well for us.
I think a huge thing as well, tying into the whole 401k or investments, is not thinking you have enough money out of your paycheck, which ties into a podcast that I previously mentioned, The Minimalists, essentially giving you the concept that you don't have to have the most luxurious things unless you truly care about those things. So the money that you're taking to spend on the coffee every day that you could make better at home, or going out to eat when you could just learn to cook and have more connection with your family in that regard, is money that could be spent investing in your future.
Yeah, and Ramit Sethi's book does a really good job at really helping you divvy that up of what your rich life is and what things you can be cutting out pretty easily. It's the weirdest thing for me to say, but it's true. We literally lost 50% of our income at a sudden notice. We did not plan for Daniel to be a stay-at-home dad, but now we make more. And it doesn't make sense. But we really just changed and reallocated our finances in a different way and really looked at our values, and we're really mindful with our spending, and it's working really good. It's weird that it's working better than when we had double the income.
Yeah, but it's through all these influences, of these documentaries we watch and the books we read and the podcasts, because there was a time when it was, we got to build our dream house. So, okay, how are we going to make this work? So we considered going into extreme debt to build our dream home.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. And then we realized that's not a good idea. So let's make the home that we have now a dream home. And we love it by doing updates, changing things here and there, and just being happy with what you have. Back to stoicism.
Yeah, like the grass is always greener, but you're not going to be happier in a bigger house with more room to not be around your family.
I still want a bigger house.
Yeah, me too. That didn't come out right, but same concept.
Same. Speaking of a very motivating person that we love to follow is Tim Ferriss. He has a podcast called The Tim Ferriss Show. He's the author of several books. He's incredible, and all of his podcasts are interviewing very successful people. So it's really nice to kind of hear their background, their stories, what they're doing as well.
That's huge for me to kind of see people leading by example. And it's always been very inspiring to look at what people have done in their lives that can parallel to your life, that kind of give you some hope if you're in not a good spot, potentially.
Yeah. And that's about surrounding yourself with all the positive information to help change your mindset. For example, I don't go out, I don't party. So if I happen to have a friend that does that, it's just a known thing. I don't do that. But they're really cool with meeting us at the rec center and playing pickleball or something for a $3 drop-in. So there's ways to have fun, or just going on a walk. There's so many things you can do for free with your friends or your family where you don't always have to pay. And you have to be really cautious because nowadays I feel like it's thrown at you everywhere you go.
Which I would like to bring up a next podcast recommendation. I've always listened to the Gary Vee audio experience. He's an author, New York Times bestseller, also has a lot of content that I've absorbed on YouTube. And the coolest thing about him is the way that he shifts your perspective of either being happy where you are, but if you're not happy, knowing that there are practical things you can do right now to change your financial state, such as going garage sailing, selling the stuff that you have, reducing the amount of things. Because if you're unhappy, ultimately it's in your power to change that. He's really good at kind of painting a picture of how to do that.
Yeah, speaking of that, I grew up really poor, so the Goodwill was my go-to, thrift shopping was my go-to, and now I've kind of switched over into, if I'm going to buy the plate, I want it to be an amazing plate, which I love East Fork Pottery, just FYI, they're amazing. But then I cut it in other ways, like there's a local theater that has a consignment shop of used clothes where if you give to them, they're good quality, they sell it kind of for you, but they make profit. So finding good avenues like that where I spend less money and get something that's really awesome at the same time. Or I spend more money on the things that I really want to and I really want to enjoy.
Yeah, I'm really good about that with clothes, where I'll just buy Costco clothes because I work out in those a lot and because I tend to destroy them at the gym. So buying a $200 pair of Lulus that's going to last me, a couple months versus buying 10 pairs of $10 sweatpants at Costco, to me makes more sense.
Costco literally has the best dad clothes. I think every time we go there, we get in a conversation with another dad about how amazing the Costco clothes are for dads.
It's true, Costco. It's where it's at.
And then I am a Lululemon fan myself, but I make it last forever.
Yeah, I have Lulus, but they unfortunately have holes in them.
Yep. He's keeping them. I'm not letting him throw them away.
Yep, $100 a pair, gotta keep them.
And now we're going to get into some tips of what we do and kind of throwing that all together. We are not financial experts, but this is just what seems to work for us.
And bear in mind that this all came through our experience. For me, being somebody that used to be a career person that was dedicated at all times to working, where I spent the majority of my 20s just working nonstop. It wasn't imagined at that time in 4 years when we met that, you're going to be a stay-at-home dad in 4 years, so don't worry about working. It was always, we have to work, we have to have a dual income. So something to bear in mind as we talk about these ideas.
Mm-hmm. So we already touched on retirement planning, but something that we've done since implementing what we've learned in the books is every time if I get a raise or some type of extra income, we put that into retirement. So we're trying to live off of the same monthly income forever almost. And anytime we make more, maybe it could go to a vacation possibly, but we were putting that more into retirement to maximize that. So that's another thing that I've learned from somebody who's about to retire at my job actually, is his entire life they've always lived off of the same monthly income, and anything extra that came into the picture, they put into retirement, they put into savings, and there's a lot of really good savings accounts. I think ours at Ally Bank is like 4.8 something interest, so you get paid just to have stuff in your savings.
And that's huge, because I think a lot of people tend to stick to the same bank just because it seems easier to stay there because you've been there, or it's your local, federal credit union. Get out of that.
Yeah.
Research what's going to pay you, because there are banks that will literally pay you just to put your money in there.
Yeah, and the I Will Teach You to Be Rich book does a really good job about implementing that point with the good banks to have and probably the not ideal banks to have and such. Another thing to mention is going more into the mindfulness, kind of ties in with the minimalism. So something we found when we moved in together is we had a lot of books that were all brand new, all very expensive. And now whenever we want to buy a book, we see if it's at the library.
If you have less of something, it's going to make you more interested in that thing because you're not so overwhelmed. So the books example is a great example of that, because if you have hundreds of books, it's almost daunting. Even though you may be the person that wants to read that book, because you have so many, your choices are going to seem endless. And then you'll never actually go into reading the book, at least for myself, because there's just so much resistance, if you will.
Yeah, so we did a book cleanse where we donated it to a place where it pays you for the books.
We've done several book cleanses throughout the
Several
years.
book cleanses. No, now we're finally at the point where we're pretty good about it. And even the last time we went to the library for a book, Daniel wanted, what was it called again? It was like a chef book.
The French Laundry.
No, anyway, that wasn't that. It was like about hospitality in the chef
Oh,
world.
what is it called? Extreme Hospitality.
Yes.
It's a newer book.
It's a newer book, Extreme Hospitality, and they didn't have it because it was new, so they bought it for him, and they're going to let him know when it arrives. So it's pretty cool to take advantage of the library.
Utilizing the resources around you. Absolutely.
Yeah, same thing for rec centers. Gym memberships can be pretty expensive, and definitely pay for it if you love your gym, for sure. But we found that we were driving by a rec center that we never touched. And then the second we checked it out, it was actually really amazing. It's cheap. It's very family friendly, which is a plus because a lot of gyms aren't family friendly because, the kids, it could be dangerous for them versus the rec centers are more geared for families.
Yeah, there's some non-negotiables in that regard as well. If I have a CrossFit membership, because at this time it's kind of a non-negotiable where I need my time with people, I need camaraderie and connection, because otherwise I'd see nobody throughout the day other than the grocery store.
Yeah, I like to call that adult recess. So that's important for him. But then for me, the rec center works out really great. So taking advantage of the rec centers nearby. Also doing things yourself as well. You could hire a kid to mow your lawn where you're helping out the kid and you don't have to do it, or you could just do it yourself and kind of see whatever works for you.
Support local.
All right, we did touch on the Airbnb and passive income. That's not always for everybody, but we really like doing it. That's not always for everybody, but we found that we really enjoy doing it.
It's been really advantageous as well because me being a stay-at-home dad, our units are right next to our home. So it fits into my schedule to flip the units. I can put the baby to sleep or bring him with me, and it makes it much more successful because we don't have to block units for work or be stressed out about only doing things on the weekends. It can be very daunting to have a lot of responsibilities that you're pushing off to the weekend when you have the opportunity to do it during the week. Again, I am a stay-at-home dad, so I have a lot of opportunity during the week fitting it into my schedule. But for you, let's say you have two working parents, maybe an Airbnb isn't going to work out for you, or it's just going to be more stress than it's worth.
Or I was in a position where I had to do it for income purposes, and it was a nightmare. I had to block it out, clean it after work, barely got time with the family, and I don't recommend that. But at the same time, if you're in that interim spot where you have a goal in sight and you can push through the hard work because you know that eventually once you have your income streamlined, you can be in a place where somebody else can do it for you, or you can cut back, or just kind of gives you different options. So sometimes the hard work pays off. It's not for everybody. It is work, but we really love doing it.
And I would say if you're going to go down that route, one thing that would be very smart is to do smaller units. We have two small units next to each other. And if you think about it, how much easier is it for you to clean one room of your house versus clean the entire house? So essentially we have two one-room houses that we're cleaning. So it's kind of like a hotel where we just go and flip the room, take care of it, versus if you were to have a 3-bedroom, 2-story house, flipping that after somebody stays in it's going to take so much more time, which may not be worth the extra income that you're going to have from it.
Yeah. On to the next one, being cautious of subscriptions and upgrades. There's always an allure to get the newer and better model, whether that be a phone, a car, shoes, clothes, that whole keeping up with the Joneses thing. And it's tricky.
Yeah, you may think Kanye's Yeezys are going to be what you need in life, but you could probably just get a cheap pair of Dunks and you're going to be fine.
I don't know what either of those are.
Yeezys are $300 shoes that Kanye West came out with. Or they might be $1,000. I don't know. They're very expensive.
See, and that, okay, I'm going to go off on a little tangent here. That's kind of scary because I do this thing called girl math. So I tend to think that, I don't buy $500 purses, so I can buy this trip to Hawaii. Or I just bought a new pair of tires. I'm pissed off about that because I can just throw $1,000 down for that, but I can't throw $1,000 down for massages for myself.
We're
girl
big,
math.
Girl math, yeah. We tend to keep things in the back of our mind at all times that we would rather spend money on experiences for us and our children rather than things.
Yeah, so, that's a good point to keep in mind to avoid that trickiness of the newer, better models is, maybe your phone works great. You don't really need a new one. So focus on like, okay, well, I didn't spend my money on that, but maybe we can all go do this together. Or, when you die, you think about experiences, not your materialistic possessions. I would hope so.
Absolutely. But I also sometimes will look at the other side by thinking of the ROI of an item. Is there a return on the investment of this item? So buying a new phone, if you want to start vlogging yourself, may be something worthwhile because it's a phone and then it's also a new camera. So then you don't need a camera and a phone. Versus buying $1,000 pair of shoes or a new pair of Dolce & Gabbana sunglasses. Is that really going to add that much more value to your life, or is it just going to be fleeting?
Yes, that fleeting is good. Back to the stoicism, but also tricky because if you want that Ouija shoes,
Ouija Beegees, check them out.
Then go for it. Get it, right? If that's your rich life, but also be mindful. Like, do you really need to keep up with the Jones in this situation? Are you doing this because you truly love it, or are you doing this because of a materialistic desire?
Yeah, it's a huge point that we really want to hammer home is that we focus.
Hammer home?
That's a huge point that we really want to hammer home is that we focus on spending our money on things that we are very cognizant that matter to us. So rather than buying junk food every day, we would rather go out to eat at a nice restaurant once a week or once a month, which makes that money worth spending. Because McDonald's is not that good, guys. Stop going.
It's really not. It's expensive too.
Yeah. You can make yourself a smash burger at home way easier.
I feel like
check out my YouTube channel.
Yeah, Daniel's the chef, so he's really big into quality food. So nothing against McDonald's. I know a lot of people out there love it. He's just really into the chef life of literally forging his own food to make it, which you can't complain. It's nice when you have that niche. All right, next. Ramit talks about this in his book, but negotiating credit cards, insurance, phone bills, trash, etc. There's always new upgrades. So every now and then, Daniel just did it last week. I'm like, hey, can you call the AT&T company to see if there's any new promotions? And every time I happen to call the internet or the phone provider, they always look at my plan and say, hey, we can do this, and it makes it cheaper.
There's a lot of really cool things that you don't know about your credit cards or about, your billing systems or airlines that if you just call and are willing to take some failure, you will be surprised with what you can get.
One time, Daniel called our airlines card and said, a lot of people call to complain and you give them stuff. I'm calling to tell you you're doing a great job and wondering if I can get something.
Which at that time they said no, but they did give me this beautiful key of information, which was we will sometimes give people miles if they're close on a trip. We will just kind of give them that so they can essentially you're going to spend the money anyway, which brings us to our most recent expense. We bought a trip that we're going to go to and we were about
2,000 miles shy.
About 2,000 miles shy, which would have cost what?
$90.
$900. So I called and I talked to a lady, and I wasn't lying to her. I just asked, "Hey, I really want to book this trip. It doesn't fit in the budget to buy these miles. Is there anything you can do for me?" And the lady put me on hold, said, "Let me be right back." 2 minutes later, picked up the phone and said, "Hey, we usually don't do this, but we went ahead and rounded your account up. Hope you have a great trip."
Yeah.
I then convinced her to start looking into eclipses because that's where we're going on a vacation to see. And she was nothing but kind. And now we're going on the trip.
Yes, it is. Ooh, I don't have the date in front of me, but it's in April. There's going to be a full total eclipse and it's going to be really exciting. Another one is sometimes I've done this by accident where there was a new trash provider to pick up the trash in our area. And I thought about switching because the prices were cheaper. So when I called to cancel my original one, they dropped the price to be cheaper than the competitor. And I didn't plan for that to happen, but it worked out really good.
And Ramit really drills his point home, but it also kind of ties into this idea that Tim Ferriss has where it's good for your character to be willing to do things that make you uncomfortable. An example would be he would have you do a test for a day where you would go to a coffee shop and you would just ask for 10% off. Not because it matters that you're getting 10% off, but just because the ability to deal with the discomfort of that is so good for your character. So now tying to me calling credit cards and asking if they can do anything for me makes it that much easier, because ultimately I'm not lying to people. I'm just calling them to see if they can do something for me, because we pay them and we are giving them our money. Is there anything we can do being customers for however long?
Yes, we're not con artists in any way, but you would be surprised how willing people are to do that. I know for the Airbnb, I get inquiries all the time like, hey, we're coming down here to help out with a fundraiser. Can we get a discount? I'm like, absolutely. Like, I have no problem with that whatsoever when people ask. So you'd be surprised how many places do the same thing.
Yep, extreme hospitality is real. So,
all right. Next, this one kind of ties into my personal rich life. This is talking about generational wealth. It's really good to have a solid foundation of your vision and your overall big why. And my goal in life is to be a grandma. I know I'm not even close to being there yet. I have to have the kids, raise the kids. They may have kids, they might not have kids. But overall, I want to be the grandma that can take my kids on vacations, do experiences with them, spoil them with whatever I find I want to spoil them with, and be a good example of teaching them financial security. Because I want this sounds a little far out there, but I want my entire lineage to come to have information. I don't want them to just be given money and not know what to do with it. So it's really important for me from a generational wealth mindset. I haven't gotten into the whole trust funds yet, but I definitely want to make it something where none of my kids, my grandkids, my great-grandkids will ever have to worry about poverty in the sense of, I can't afford to go to school, I can't afford my medical bills. I really want everybody to have financial independence. So this is more of talking about what is your big overall why for why you want to be financially successful.
Goes into that old saying that you can feed a man a fish, which will feed him for a day, or you can teach the man to fish, which will feed him for a lifetime.
Yeah.
That's huge. Which for me is huge with children, because I don't want my kids to have money that they haven't earned. Tying into our next point, I really want to drive home the importance of learning to cook at home. Not everyone is going to be a Michelin chef. Not everyone is going to be able to whip up a gourmet meal, but everyone should be able to make general food by themselves. This saves so much money as far as groceries, as far as the health of the contents of what you're providing for your family, and then also the satisfaction in knowing exactly what you're putting in your body. Don't get me wrong, I bake pastries and cakes and bread, but I know that when I'm putting the investment in this, because I've created it, it doesn't have all this extra fluff that you would get if you were to just go buy it from the store. That's another thing that we use consistently is meal prepping. It doesn't have to be the healthiest of meal prep, even though generally it is, but the basic meal structures for most of our meals is a vegetable, a carb source, and a protein.
Yeah, and I was former military, so I'm just used to eating things straight out of a can. And I don't really have to have I don't go out to eat during lunch. I'll just literally grab a can of soup, pop the top and down it, and everyone looks at me like I'm super weird. But I mean, it's just fuel to fuel the body. That being said, though, I do come home and have a very great meal that I'm very grateful for too. But the point being, when you buy groceries and cook at home for yourself, you're going to save a ton of money. And that's money that you're saving to allocate towards what you want to actually spend it on.
And that can also be time that you spend with your family, learning new things together. I had a friend of mine that him and his family would do different cuisines from around the world. And teaching your kids that would be super important. So I definitely look forward to doing that with my son.
Also, bringing the kids in is super fun, especially if you try making pasta. And the coolest thing about that is I'm pretty sure it's only egg yolks and flour. Is that right?
Yeah, very minimal.
And it's so fun. And you don't have to have all the fancy tools or anything like that. But even just rolling out the dough or cutting it in different shapes and different textures is really fun. Or we like to make pizzas, even if it's just like a simple tortilla with different toppings or something like that. Getting them involved, letting them know where food comes from. Going to U-Pick farms, that's also our favorite as well. Because you're getting to be on a farm with your kids and supporting that farmer as well locally and eating something that's fresh off the vine.
Yeah. On to our next point. We had a wonderful trip to Denver, Colorado.
Yes, we visited my dad. He is really into solar panels and kind of a leaving a small footprint type environment, but he's really lucky. And actually, Alaska's tricky. Alaska does have solar panels, don't get me wrong. But if you live in the continental US, you are almost good to go on solar panels, it seems like, because you just get so much direct sun as opposed to here. It kind of comes up like a boomerang. And we visited him and he gets paid like $10 a month for his solar panels because he's producing more energy than what he's using. And this is the summer. And he's really into riding his bike everywhere he goes. He drives an electric vehicle. That whole lifestyle is really cool to look into if that's something you can do.
So essentially we're saying if where you're at is a place that you can utilize solar panels or electric vehicles or bike transportation, that will save you an exponential amount of money. Mm-hmm. Again, it's not going to work for everybody. Where we're at, it's really hard to drive an e-bike through 3 feet of snow, or electric vehicles around here
don't last as long with the battery.
They don't last as long, but also you can only go 150 miles max at this time. Whereas Anchorage for us is like
300 miles away.
300 miles away?
Yeah. Maybe not that much.
It's 100 miles. So it's 100 miles, but
we don't even know.
Then you have to charge it. Let's say it's
yeah.
100 miles. I think it's like 100 miles. Basically, you have to go there, then you have to charge the vehicle. So there's a lot more to consider.
When I visited Arizona last, and it wasn't like this when I was a kid, but now in a lot of parking lots, they have the shaded parking, which is huge if you live in a desert environment. But then on top, they have the solar panels, and it seems like a no-brainer to incorporate that more into your area if you're able to.
So that could be something you could use to save money or to make money.
Ooh, and another thing I want to touch on for that is TED Talks. There's so many TED Talks on so many different things, and it's really cool because they deliver a wealth of information in a maybe 18-minute presentation. So getting into those, whether you're looking up solar panels or e-bikes or finances, you can totally go ham on TED Talks because it's really good content.
But again, it's really important to make sure that the content that you're absorbing is stuff that's applicable to the choices that you want or the future that you want. So it's easy for me to watch YouTube videos on how to be better at volleyball when I play volleyball once a week. How much of that time is advantageous? At some point, it is advantageous because I want to learn it. But if I were to spend 6 days a week watching these videos, it's not going to provide me the return on the time investment, if that makes sense.
Are you talking about like binge watching TED Talks?
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Or binge watching YouTube videos on learning how to do a triple backflip gainer that I'm never going to do because I'm 250 pounds.
Okay, so like time is money.
Time is money.
Okay.
Tempest Fusion.
What?
It's from Blast from the Past.
Tempest Fusion?
Fusion.
What's a Tempest Fusion?
Time is money.
Is that Italian? Or, wait, no, Latin?
You need to watch Blast from the Past.
Okay. Everybody watch Blast from the Past. Apparently, I have to rewatch it as well.
Shout out to Brendan Fraser.
All right. Last one. Career growth.
Best way to make more money is to ask your boss for more money.
Well, I mean, sure, I guess you could do that. But really look at your career and what you're doing. And you would be surprised to see how much more you can maximize your money. Whether that being doing the exact same thing, just at a different place and getting paid more. Or for instance, in my story, there was an overall job that I was waiting to get, but I was willing to be totally patient for. And I think I waited 2 years. 2 years of being very patient, but very steady on my goal. And then I got it and it's been amazing. So doing a career that you absolutely love to do. And when you do something that you're truly passionate about, that you're truly aligned with, it's like the path clears its way. And everything that you didn't imagine would happen does happen. And that could be better finances, better opportunities, and being fully fulfilled in what you do.
And let's be honest, the majority of people are in jobs that they're not happy with.
Yeah, that's not helpful.
And that ties into the large point of being honest with yourself. But also, you can't just uproot your entire life if you've kind of set this structure to be. So I've been stuck in that place quite a bit with various careers where I knew this isn't where I wanted to be. This isn't the job that I want for the rest of my life, but I kind of have to be here. I'm kind of stuck at this point until I make a decision or until I kind of set something up. But when you're in that place, absolutely be confident that you should be worth more money or you're worth more than what they're willing to pay you. So I'm going to paint this thought experiment for you. What if I were to tell you right now, I'm going to give you $400 billion? What would you say?
Yes, obviously.
Absolutely. Who wouldn't? But what if I were to tell you that after receiving this $400 billion, you're going to die tomorrow?
No, no way. And I would like to say that some people might think, oh, okay, yeah, I would sacrifice that because it's better for my family. I can guarantee you that your family would much rather have you than $400 billion.
You are better for your family. So in that thought experiment, you are worth more than $400 billion. So live today like $400 billion.
Yes, because you're worth it. And a lot of people don't have that confidence within themselves. But we're here to tell you that you're absolutely unique and incredible and worth every single penny and thought of what you want to go do with your life.
You just got to let your colors burst because you're a firework.
Oh gosh. And anyways, so there's another really good Jim Carrey one that you reference all the time. The Jim Carrey dad one. What's that?
I love it. Yeah. So all of these are tying into the idea that you get to decide your value in your life. Jim Carrey had this commencement speech, I believe, talking about his dad, where his dad was a concert saxophone player, I believe, who gave up his dreams of playing on a big stage to take care of his family, which he did. And he survived happily, relatively, giving up on his dream and raising a family. But right before he was about to retire, he got fired, losing tenure and losing all of his investment in that time. And the point of the story is that you can spend your whole life doing what you think is right and still get fired in the end and still die in the end. So do what you love now.
Yeah, that's so big.
It's deep.
That gets me every time. And I think about that all the time too, even when I'm really stressed out on my job. Do I really want to be here? And so far at the place I'm at, absolutely yes. I am so happy with my job. I absolutely love doing it. I sure might grow and change my mind and see it a different way, but as of right now, I'm very happy. And then same thing with Daniel. He was not happy in the jobs that he had. He loves being a chef, so he's still doing that in a different way. But him being a dad, I've never seen him more satisfied and fulfilled, and all of a sudden everything aligned for us to be able to make it work.
And from a person who spent a lot of times in jobs that I was very unhappy at, to the point of tears in a lot of aspects.
And to add though, those were not chef jobs, I would say. Those were like oil field type random jobs.
Yeah, I have quite a history of different career choices, which I was successful at. I just didn't align with the person that I would have to become to continue being those career people. A person who worked 7 days a week, 12-hour days, shift work, things of that nature. But ultimately, when I was in those painful positions, I would confidently know that I was still worth more money because of the effort I would put in. So I would talk to my bosses and I would try to set it up where I would make more money. And B, I know that if you're not happy where you're at, you can make a change. So in your mind, absolutely, regardless of where you are, if you're unhappy and you're complaining about it, you have the power to change it. You just got to take that first step.
It's huge. And that wraps up our 4th episode on finances for our podcast. Next week, we're going to talk about probably my second favorite thing in the world. And if I wasn't a nurse, I would be doing this.
Chocolatier.
No, I could not do that for my blood sugar. That wouldn't be good because I would just eat it all the time. But my second favorite thing absolutely in the world is an uncluttered lifestyle. So we're going to go all into making your life more efficient by having less.
All right, thanks guys so much for listening, and we'll catch you in the next one.
Bye.
Bye.